everybody. I'm Murray Pollock, editor of International Rental News magazine, and I'm here with Kylie Fuentes, who's the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Zilliant. Zilliant, of course, is well known for its price optimization software. Welcome, Kylie. Thanks for your time today. Let's start just by you explaining a little about your own background and maybe a little about Zilliant as well.
Yeah, for sure. Also, hi, thanks, Murray, for having me. I appreciate it. My name's Kylie. I have been at Zilliant now for, it's just, I think, a little bit over 2 years. So as you mentioned, I run our product and R&D organization and our marketing groups. But before that, I was at Salesforce, where I used to run the Revenue Cloud product line. Some of your viewers may know what that is. Specifically at Salesforce, that was the cloud unit that was responsible for what I would consider to be the B2B monetization technologies. So if you think Salesforce is typically a lot of like sales and lead management and those sorts of things, there's the old adage, nothing happens until somebody buys something. Well, Revenue Cloud kind of filled that gap. It was really about making sure you could go from taking kind of that top of funnel, middle of the funnel conversation and turn it, quite frankly, into an order, into a transaction, and more importantly, be able to bill and kind of monetize off the back of that. Prior to that, I've been building software for way too long. I won't tell you the years, but I've always generally been in the monetization or the revenue or commerce space. So the progression to Zilliant for me was probably a pretty natural one, because I think what I've seen constantly, when you sort of look at commerce and monetization, is that pricing oftentimes gets looked as an afterthought, or it's an operational task, when really I think it's a missed opportunity because it is fundamentally a strategic business lever. So that's kind of why I joined Zilliant, to help companies maybe get a better handle on their pricing and do that in a much more scalable and accessible way.
And you're based, Zilliant is based in San Francisco, and that's where you're located as well.
No, so we're 23-ish, I think, year old company that was originally founded out of Texas, so Austin. But when the pandemic happened, like I think a lot of businesses, we ended up kind of starting to kind of have people relocate elsewhere. We've since then kind of been pretty flexible with our hiring. So we're sort of, we're all over the place. We're all over the US, but then we also have a presence in Europe, particularly in the UK and in France.
Okay, but your customers are all over the world, I guess.
Yeah, yes, they are.
Okay, so Kylie, briefly, just summarize the main products that Zilliant offers, and then maybe we can talk about which are the most appropriate for equipment rental companies to use.
Sure. So I guess maybe the first thing I'd say is, so you talked about price optimization. I think people synonymously think of Zilliant with price optimization, and that is true in terms of where we were, like, 20 years ago or so when the company started. I would say, for me, when I think about what we do, how I describe it is that we are an AI pricing and revenue automation platform. Really, we're about giving B2B businesses control over their entire end-to-end pricing journey. So as I mentioned, it's not just optimization. It's not the task of, can I get guidance for a price? Obtainment of a price is one factor, but really it's everything from, have I got the right pricing strategy that aligns with my business goals? Am I able to operationalize that through my business, push it out through my different kind of distribution channels, my different, lines of business, whatever it might be? Can I optimize that for the right customer and set the right guidance, of course? But then, ultimately, I go back to what I said, nothing happens till somebody buys something. So I can have the best optimized price in the world, but if I can't make sure that that gets into the hands of the consumer at the point of the transaction, at the point of deal, serve that up in the right time, and influence the way it shows up in channel, then it was kind of a great strategy with no execution. So we think about the entire pricing journey. And as a result, we have products that are really geared towards kind of pricing teams in that kind of upfront strategy planning and operations kind of space. And then we also have products that are really thinking about kind of that last mile execution and helping our customers get that into the hands of their consumers, their buyers. And then the third tier really is analytics and intelligence. So those are the three kind of, I guess, areas that we think about our product and technology: pricing teams, revenue teams, and then intelligence that really supports both of those motions. When it comes to, what's relevant for specific customers in the rental space, quite frankly, what we see is they have needs across all of those spectrums. What I'd say, generally speaking, though, is each customer's unique. Maybe the catalyst for why they come to talk to us might differ. So we have some customers who come to us very much with, optimization is what they think is their primary need, and we'll start the conversation there. Very quickly, we learn that maybe they have challenges in other areas of their business, and so that starts to move to other directions. Oftentimes they come to us and they say, you know what, we're not ready for highly sophisticated optimized prices. We just need some basic help to go from rudimentary kind of systems, a lot of manual work, and help us automate some of our processes, in which case we might be talking to them more about kind of pricing management and operations. So it really does depend on the customer.
It's quite complicated. You're talking about management of pricing, optimization of pricing, and then you're talking about AI analysis. Of the rental companies that you have, I know you're saying that each has its own needs. Where are what's the low-hanging fruit in terms of equipment rental? Where can you make the most impact quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for this category or industry in particular, I think, so what I'm going to say is specific to the rental industry, but I also think it's starting to kind of shift and, quite frankly, be more of a phenomenon across the board. I think that the rental industry is probably, just by nature of the way it works, had to think about more kind of real-time or flexible or agile pricing. And so that has definitely been a pain point or a need. And in order to do that kind of well, you kind of need to have a good understanding of a couple of parameters. You sort of need to know what's been the profile of like rental history before, a deep understanding of, how kind of future projections of demand might shift a little bit of how you price or what you do. So this kind of concept of like pricing elasticity is kind of really important. That tends to be a use case that we see a lot for this type of customer. We certainly, have a lot of customers that come to us looking for help with that. But what I would say, quite frankly, is the need for more agile pricing is now no longer something specific to certain industries. I mean, you only have to pick up the newspaper to see the pressure on business right now and how volatile the market is. Yeah. And so this need for what I would call pricing agility is something that we're seeing across a number of industries now.
And at a basic level for an equipment rental company, the companies that are using the technology, is it mainly being used so that managers can manage prices behind the scenes using the technology, or is this something that customers are seeing in real time, the pricing changing depending on demand and availability of product?
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting, and again, every business is different, but one of the things that we see typically, a lot of customers have a large proportion of their businesses, which is what we would call like negotiated pricing or customer specific pricing. So it's not so much like the retail play where, I guess sometimes I think people think dynamic pricing and they think about the airline business, where it's like I go to Google and I see one price and I go back 3 hours later and it's different. That's very much a retail motion. What we see a lot of, with our customers is this notion, as I said, of kind of more customer specific negotiated pricing, which is really more at the account level. We deal mostly in the B2B space, so our customers sell to other businesses generally. And so that means that they are really brokering kind of large scale agreements. They're complex in their terms. They're subject to a lot of different parameters. And so as a result, the primary use case that we would see in those situations is less of that retail use case where it's kind of flashing up to customers in an end portal, but rather it's the tool to help both pricing teams, as I said, set up the right strategy and make sure that the ultimate, goal, which is the price you deliver, meets profit and kind of revenue goals, but also so that the person brokering that negotiation with that end customer has the right information to set the right price. That doesn't always translate itself into a like an end customer facing asset. It sometimes can. You think about that through the lens of like a buying portal. We have a lot of customers who will serve up prices in buying portals. It is account-based pricing, so whatever was contracted and agreed is what they will see there, and we honor those pricing parameters. Could be in a quote or a sales agreement. So it can impact the end user experience. But regardless of the artifact or the touch point, what I would say is in that type of a deal motion, what's really important is like a trust relationship between the buyer and the seller. And so we see our technology often being used as a way of helping our customers explain to their customers how they set their pricing, how, why pricing shifts or changes. because quite frankly, pricing should be good pricing, should be a win-win, right? It's a win for the buyer and it's a win for the seller because the buyer feels like they're paying for something that is commensurate with the value they receive. And the seller is obviously selling in a way that is, you know, in alignment with their commercial goals. And so we play that role too, even if it's just in conversation and explainability.
I want to ask you about the kind of companies that you're working with, the size and what that would mean for our audience, who range from very small mom and pop rental stores up to the nationals. But how do you, in general terms, how do you measure the success of the implementation of the software? Can you measure it in brute financial numbers? Or, I mean, because it's a dynamic environment, it's very difficult to measure what impact you're having, but can you do that?
The short answer is yeah. I mean, this is probably why I love working in the space that I do, actually, because unlike tools that kind of say to you, hey, we can improve your productivity, like, how do you measure that? I mean, at the end of the day, this is money. And so it is much more measurable, you know, I think, than perhaps other technologies that you know, companies spend their IT spend on. I can tell you, you know, and I'm, you know, I think I can't talk specifics about any individual customers, but we do have, for example, you know, we've got some case studies. We've seen some customers in this space who have been quite comfortable telling us that they've seen year-on-year revenue lifts of like 15%, while their rental rates went up on average by 9%. So we can start to see, you know, really before baseline, post-implementation, and then of course, continual refinement and enhancement, the direct relationship that we're having. You know, I'd say in this instance, when you look at kind of the metrics, there's really a few things you look at, right? Like, so obviously profitability and margin is a key topic for a lot of people that are investing in these types of technologies. And we absolutely have tools to help measure that. I mean, the other one is it's not margin at the expense of growth or bookings or revenue. And so really making sure that, I mean, the ideal scenario is you're protecting or holding margin, but at the same time, driving demand or making sure that you're kind of keeping that balance with demand. And so looking at the top line impact is also really important. And so I think those are probably the big metrics that we look at. You know, internally, I should say, you know, we've got our technology, which is the software piece, but we also have some really amazing world-class leaders in this space who know the domain inside out, and they can work with our customers to help make sure they define the right metrics, they set the right baselines, have some clear views on targets, so that when they execute, it's not the software's gone live, but actually they have a clear definition of the outcomes they want to achieve, and we can help them measure that.
For this kind of technology to work, you need to have good data, don't you? The rental company has to know about availability of product, has to know about the contracts that it's got negotiated with customers. And that implies that it would be a big company or a company with an IT department, etc. I mean, what kind of scale of business do you have to be able to effectively use this kind of technology?
I love this question so much because this is probably one of the biggest problems that we actively think about here at Zilliant. It is true, I would say, you know, going back again 20 odd years ago, when the industry or the category started to emerge, it very much was, again, it was a price optimization play. And this is not just Zilliant, this is true of other technology vendors in the space. Price optimization can feel very overwhelming. For those who don't know, it is AI generated, sort of machine learning, algorithmically driven guidance on how to get to a price. And typically that has really been the domain of very large enterprises because they have rich data sets, they have the IT teams that can manage that data, they, you know, have sophisticated pricing teams and sophisticated pricing strategies. That is materially different now. So for a couple of reasons, I would say, as I said, just from a market perspective, every business deserves good pricing, not just those super fancy companies. The market is in a place where there are more demands on good pricing, having, as I said, an impact on top and bottom line, and then the ability to respond at market speed. So I think more businesses through the spectrum, from very upper echelons of complexity to lower maturity, are thinking about this problem. What I would say is, you know, recent shifts in technology, and I don't need to probably tell you all about those, but quite frankly, this misnomer of like, you need reams and reams and reams of data and it needs to be super organized and super clean. That is a thing of the past. I think we are getting much better at handling data sets which are less structured. We are getting much better at also, I mean, one of the things we pride ourselves is bringing best practices in terms of pricing process and rules and logic into the application so our customers don't have to come with that knowledge beforehand. So I would say, there are some basic requirements. I mean, you do need to have some kind of a mechanism for taking orders, whether that be an ERP system, whether that be like a point of sale system. You're not doing it on pen and paper. So you definitely need something to have some kind of history. Ideally, you would like to have, as I said, some kind of a history of your customers, because that helps us shape a view of like what the future should be. If you don't have it, well, then we collectively build that over time, right? But I would say that beyond that, actually, it's no longer the domain of these very complex customers. Our technology, both the user experience, the way we're thinking about deployment, bringing more of that kind of expertise in pricing into the technology so our customers don't need to have these huge kind of pricing scientists inside their org is something we're really committed to. And we're seeing, quite frankly, a lot of the movement in market and a lot of the demand come from customers who previously were using spreadsheets.
So a business with $20 million, 20 million euros turnover, that's revenue. That's realistic, is it? Or really is it we're looking 50 million and above? I mean, how would you pitch it?
I think again, it really depends on what their goals are. Like, what are they trying to do? For companies that small, I'd probably go out on a limb to say, you know what, their pricing processes are probably pretty limited. They may not even have a pricing person on staff. So in that case, what they're probably looking to do is, automate some of the processes, get off spreadsheets, reduce manual errors. We do have technologies that can help with that. Arguably, I'd say that's probably not where the biggest demand is, quite frankly. I'd say where we see customers starting to really say, you know what, I need more help systematically, it's probably around the $100 million plus range, just purely because I think that's where pricing starts to get complex. They have more SKUs, they have more customers. The way they look at contract terms gets more complicated. They maybe operate in multiple markets. Those sorts of problems come into play.
Understood. Can you talk a little about how you're using AI to help in I mean, AI is obviously developing at an enormous rate. So the AI use or the machine learning you were using 5 years ago is now completely different from what you're able to do now. What are you able to do now?
Yeah. So what I would say is, again, I'm really proud of this history of Zilliant. Like, people think that AI, I hear this in my circles all the time, like, wow, there's like, oh my goodness, all this stuff we can do with AI. Absolutely, there is a huge amount of innovation that is taking place right now, and it is structural, not cyclical. Like, we are at a point now where the way SaaS is going to be delivered and the way we think about delivering kind of functionality and capability to customers is absolutely changing rapidly. But I would say that Zilliant has always had a pedigree in being an AI first company. So when we think about when we started, we were one of the pioneers in bringing machine learning to pricing, which is effectively how we do price optimization. That absolutely continues to be a really top use case, which is optimized pricing using AI. And obviously our algorithms and our techniques have become much more sophisticated over the years. But the thing with AI is, like, there's multiple different types of AI, right? There's like machine learning, there's robotic process automation, there's generative AI, there's agentic AI. So for me, and the way that we look at it is, let's be clear of the job to be done. What is our customer trying to achieve? Then let's use the right technology and apply that to adequately solve that use case. So we continue to use a deep bench of machine learning within our price optimization. More recently, what we're moving towards, and we announced this just this year, is a whole lot of generative AI for intelligence. And so this sort of goes to this idea of, again, pricing is more than just a number. It's really fueling a business strategy. So how do we give our customers, think of it as basically a pricing data scientist that works while you sleep, we're proactively looking your rich and expansive data sets to help you identify things that you don't have to go looking for anymore. We proactively serve these up for you. We know what your business goals are. We help you understand when maybe your execution is deviating from your goal and help you kind of course correct and make recommendations on how you can adjust. And so we're really moving heavily into that space of using generative AI as a way of proactively serving up information that our customers need to know. The Holy Grail and some of the technologies that we are literally on the cusp of, in October, I will be in Amsterdam sharing some of this with our customers. But the next frontier is linking those insights into automatic workflow automation. And this is absolutely kind of where we are at right now. And so I think there's a lot of really exciting applications for AI and what we're doing, much further beyond just, hey, can I do price optimization using AI? Our big philosophy, quite frankly, is AI is a technology tool that is there to serve basically businesses with their core use cases. And so the way we apply it is we want it to be invisible in the flow of work. You shouldn't really know you're necessarily interacting with AI. You should know that you're getting a better outcome as a result of that AI, or that we are helping you be more efficient because AI allows us to do it faster, quicker, and give you more agility.
So you have customers using AI agents on pricing, for example?
Agents specifically, no. Watch this space. So it's important. Like, and I don't want to be all super kind of geeky with everybody here, but agents actually mean something very particular. So generative AI basically means that we are able to generate information. So we can search, we take data inputs, we learn from that, and then we can serve up an insight, or we can serve up a recommendation. So we've generated some content. That is what we do today. Agentic AI is something different, and that is really an autonomous goal-seeking AI that basically works on its own. And so a scenario, in that space would be, hey, a customer or an end user sets a goal, and then, the agentic AI application or solution is proactively kind of working in the background to continuously do things to achieve that goal, exceed that goal, refine against that goal. I absolutely think agentic AI is going to permeate all of B2B technology. And so we are absolutely looking at that as one of the other big pieces in our roadmap.
Can you give me an idea of how the pricing structure for Zilliant when companies are using, what's the license basis? Is it on a transaction basis? Is it on the number of people using it? How does it work?
As in, how do we charge, you mean?
Yeah.
How do we customers? Yeah. It does depend a little bit on the product. So, but generally speaking, I would say for the pricing, so the tools that are really geared towards pricing teams, pricing strategy, analysis, all that sort of stuff, it tends to be based on the revenue under management that we have, which is probably the best indicator of basically the volume of transactions, that we support. Yeah. So it's not on a transaction basis. It's really, based on the size of the company, really, and it's commensurate with that. We do have other products where the real value proposition is more about efficiencies for the end user. And so that would probably follow more of a typical like seat-based licensing structure. But generally, we would see for most of our customers, it's really more on the our pricing is associated with the size of the business.
Perfect. Just a detailed question. You get very different types of rental companies. You get single product specialists, and then you've got the massive generalists who are renting, everything from tiny equipment to large excavators. Does this technology lend itself to any particular type of company, a single product company or the generalist?
Yeah, I don't think so that I've seen. I think I mean, at the end of the day, the way that our software deploys, we've sort of created a platform that is extremely flexible. And so what that means is as a customer goes through what we call kind of like the solution design process, and they work in conjunction with us or our systems integrators to make sure that they have ultimately the optimal solution for their business needs. And quite frankly, our businesses, as they scale and grow, well, the shape of what their needs from us and our technology changes. So, you know, that kind of flexibility and that kind of partnership through the discovery means that we can scale back or scale up the complexity based on the needs of the customer.
Yeah, great. Kylie, thank you very much. That's fascinating and interesting. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about or that you want to say about Zilliant that you haven't said?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, maybe the one other thing I would say is, and I care deeply about this, actually. I think one of the things that maybe is a bit of a misnomer is that pricing technologies is a thing for pricing managers or pricing VPs or pricing directors or whatever it might be. And I am adamant that that is not true. Those people absolutely have skin in the game, and we absolutely see them as valued end users of a lot of the technology. But pricing is something that the C-suite need to care about, because it is one, I mean, if anybody went to business school, right, it's like one of the 4 Ps. So don't relegate it to it being like an operational task, you know, tucked in under ops or finance or whatever it might be. Think about it as part of your business strategy. And if that's the case, then deploy, you know, the brain power, and then, you know, quite frankly, also some of the internal kind of operational power to thinking about how you get it right. So really, I think it is in the domain of like the chief commercial officer or the CEO or the, you know, the CFO. They should be thinking about these things, especially in a market like the one we're in at the moment.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think you're right about the importance of pricing, and that certainly isn't lost on rental companies. Pricing is so core to what they do. So look, Kylie Fuentes from Zilliant, that was really interesting. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You have offices in the States, in Europe, and Asia as well. Do you have an office in Asia?
No, we are
No?
mostly North America and US,
Europe.
sorry, America and Europe and UK.
Okay, great. Look, good luck with it, and thanks
Thank
again.
you. Bye.